One. Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. My partner, Cam Underwood, is off on assignment this week. If you're watching virtually next to me, you will see the unbelievable writer for the Miami Herald for a great while and has covered the University of
30
Miami
years.
and soccer
It's been
and
30
everything
years.
else, and a professor at the University of Miami. That's Michelle Kaufman. Michelle, thanks for joining us.
Yes, of course. It's been 30 years, believe it or not, that I've been covering UM for the Miami Herald. And I did go to UM, so I was sports editor of the Hurricane back in the day. I was there from 83 to 87. So I was there when they were winning football titles and when they brought back basketball in 85 with Bill Foster. I was on the school paper then covering that story. And then I got to see them go to the Final Four and now this whole new era. So that's been quite a ride. And 30 years at the Miami Herald covering UM basketball, mostly on the UM front, in addition to obviously all of my soccer coverage and Olympics and tennis and all the other stuff. So,
yeah, you've certainly kept busy over the years. Michelle, I want to dive right in because your time is limited. It wasn't too a few days ago, you guys broke the story along with Pete Thamel and Andrea and everyone that Dan Radakovich, the Miami director of athletics, was going to retire. Just talk about how that story developed, because I know that you and Barry Jackson and others had kind of known this was coming and maybe talked to Dan, got some denials, but how did the story develop? And where did we get to this point?
Yeah, well, this was a slow evolving story. On January 25th, to be exact, and I only know the exact date because I was covering the Miami Marathon that day, and I got a phone call during the marathon from a very good source who knows everything about UM. I mean, a really deep source at UM. You know, when you're around 30 years, you know some people.
Sure.
And this person called me and said, Dan Radakovich is out. They already have someone in line. It is someone who is not coming from the college ranks. It is not a traditional athletic director. This is somebody who's more in the business and promotion side. And, I'm a little worried because I'm not sure about the reputation of this person. So anyway, I immediately called Dan Radakovich and I asked him, before I even said anything, he said, I know why you're calling and it's not true. I'm not gone. I'm still here. I haven't even had a meeting yet with the administration. And he said, we are scheduled to meet. He said the meeting was supposed to be after the football season, but because the football season went longer than anyone thought, all of those meetings were pushed back. And he said, but my contract runs through the end of the year and I am here. I am not going anywhere for the time being. He said, I'm here. I plan to be here all spring. So if you write that I'm gone, that's going to be inaccurate. I'm just telling you from the horse's mouth, don't write that because I'm still here and we haven't even had the meetings yet. I am having meetings. He told me that he was scheduled to have meetings with the president. And, they were going to discuss what comes next and all that. But at that moment on January 25th, he was not retired. He said he was not planning to retire at that point. And, he said, don't write it. Don't write that I'm out because I'm not out. So anyway, fast forward almost 4 months to the day, we heard that it was definitely happening. And I called him again. I said, hello, it's me again, 4 months later. Remember what we talked about? And he said, yes. And he said, that he had meetings with the president. And after these meetings, he decided to step down. And he said, he's stepping down 8 months early, but he wanted to stress that it was his decision to retire. And, so obviously he doesn't want the narrative to be that he was forced out. And the truth is, it is true that he announced his retirement the other day and he is retiring. He's retiring 8 months early and he announced that he's retiring. The thing is that it does seem from everyone else that Barry and I spoke to that the university wanted to go in a different direction. They did have somebody that they've been eyeing which is Michael Yormark. And, they want to go. Look, these days, everything is so different from the days of Paul D. How much do we miss Paul D? I miss him a lot.
I do too.
Those were different times. Yeah, those were different times. Sam Jankovic, Paul D. It was a different time. It was all about and college spirit, and everybody had a very personal relationship with the athletic directors, and it was just less business-like. I guess I would say it was more collegial. It was more collegiate. It was more amateur. And the money now is so massive. You're talking about the football team right now has a coach that's making $80 million. I will repeat that. I mean, that number still blows me away. $80 million for a football coach. The NIL for the football team is, probably approaching $30-40 million at this point. The basketball team is now, Jay Lucas did an incredible job. I think it's one of the best hires. And by the way, you have to give credit. We talked, you said, what did Dan do? I mean, he was the AD here hiring Jay Lucas, which was a great hire. I think it's one of the best hires they've made in the 30 years that I've been here. A 36 at the time year old guy to do what he did, turn around this program, full turnaround in one season is amazing. He also does have many more resources and NIL money than any of the previous coaches had, that Coach L had. I think his NIL money is probably somewhere between 10 million to 20 million or 15 million, somewhere around there. So you're talking about $50 million probably just for those two sports for NIL money, an $80 million football coach. That money has to come from somewhere. And you've been around a long time. So have I. This is not Alabama. This is not Georgia. This is not Texas. This is not UF. They don't have hundreds of thousands of people that went to this school that, have big tailgate parties with giant Winnebagos, and, they're shelling out money for the university. I mean, this is a small private university, a lot of foreign exchange students here that really don't care about American sports. It's a different place than those big colleges. But the U is a national brand in college athletics, and they want to keep up. And to keep up, they have to have the money to keep up with the facilities and with the NIL and with the coaches' salaries now that are being demanded by all these people. So in order to do that, I think it seems and it appears from everybody that I have spoken to and that Barry spoke to, that they wanted to go in a direction of someone who's more of a wheeler dealer, promotion type person, who's going to be about marketing and promotion and making big money deals and, cross promoting with big companies or brands or whatever. And that's really not what Dan Radakovich is. It doesn't mean that he couldn't fundraise. It just means that's not how you would describe him. So I think they came to a mutual agreement. I would say maybe that, they want to go in a different direction. He was going to retire at the end of the year. Let's just, now he says it was fully his decision. He decided to step down. He decided to retire. And that is true. And it just may be also that they said, okay, here's what we want from the athletic director. We want you to raise X number of dollars. We want you to do X, Y, and Z. And maybe he decided that this is not his cup of tea, and it was time to spend time with his family and move on and do something else. So whatever the case is, Dan is out 4 months after I first got that phone call. And now the question is, are they going to hire Michael Yormark? Now, I have to say, there's been quite a bit of negative pushback. I've seen some on social media. There's been a lot of pushback, and from from fans, from some media people saying, please don't do this. He did not do a good job with the Panthers, or he's not a good guy, or he's whatever. So there's been some pushback, and I don't think this is definitely, if they do hire him, this is not a decision that's going to be universally embraced. It sounds like it would be kind of a controversial pick. So it remains to be seen whether he is the guy, but Barry has a source that says that he was offered the job. So I don't know where they're at right now, or if this negative pushback is going to have any effect on, maybe they say, let's keep looking around, or are they just going to say, no, this is our guy. This is the guy we want. We want a wheeler dealer. We want a guy who's done what he's done at Rock Nation and all that, promoting musicians and other celebrities. And that's what we need at now, because in the day of NIL, everybody has to be a celebrity. So,
I mean,
it's going to be a controversial pick.
Certainly the job of the athletic director in college sports these days is not nearly the same one that Sam Jankovic or Paul D had. It's completely different. And given that at the University of Miami specifically, they've hired Legends Global, which is a firm that, they've basically outsourced a lot of their revenue building. And, President Echeverria and Rudy Fernandez, his right-hand man, are very involved in athletics and care a lot about athletics. So they have their input on big hires. When they're the ones that brought Mario down here. I'm sure they were involved in Jay's hire and other things. But
there's a lot of Columbus connections. Remember that
for sure.
All of these things have Columbus connections. Jay Lucas, the reason they even knew about him is because he was so closely recruiting the Boozer twins.
Right.
And that's how they got to know him, and Andrew Moran and all that. And Mario is Mario. Mario went to Columbus. So, these are local guys, local businessmen. And by the way, when we talk about the difference in the athletic director job right now in college athletics, the job of president right now in academics, in academia, is very, very, very different, which, when I was at Tad Foote was the president. He came from academia. Then Donna Shalala came. She came from academia. Julio Frank came from academia. These are all people who came from academia. All of a sudden, the new president is a guy who's a businessman. He is a businessman, a sharp businessman who turned around the Jackson Medical Center, made it a huge, profitable U Health organization. And again, just like in athletics, where everything is about facilities and money, college students now, it used to be that it was just accepted. When you go to college, you're going to live in a crappy dorm, you're going to eat in a crappy cafeteria, and, the football players are going to be working out in a crappy gym. That is what college was, and that was part of the college experience. Nowadays, when kids are going around doing their college tours, they are comparing dorms. They want the dorms to look like, like condos with, waterside condos with fancy food, with many, many types of food options, and everyone has different types of food that they want. It's not like you walk through the cafeteria and there's someone there with a shower cap on their head serving you some slop, So, I mean, it's a different time. And so nowadays, being the college president is also different than it was with Tad Foote and with Donna Shalala and even with Julio Frank, which is they bring in a business guy, because colleges now, it's about business. It's about fundraising. It's about construction of new facilities, new buildings, new classrooms, new, studios for the TV students, new everything. The dorms have to be tip-top 5-star resorts. And so rather than have someone from academia who's caring more about the history department or bringing in a guest speaker for the sociology department, these are people that are raising money and know how to run a business. It's a CEO. The president now of a lot of colleges in America are CEOs, and that's the route that University of Miami Board of Trustees went. And by the way, this is the same route they're going with athletic director. They want a CEO as president. They want a CEO, a hard driving wheeler dealer to be the president and to be the athletic director. So these are very different times. I know a lot of professors at and while they have the utmost respect for Joe Echeverria for, what he's done with Jackson, all that, there is some concern overall among academic people across the country that colleges are becoming such big business and charging $90,000 to go there that, maybe the academics is being shoved aside a little bit and the business part is more important. So these are different times from when I was in college. I know I sound old. I sound like an old fart lamenting the old days, but it is a different time. And so the university, I think, is looking for different kinds of leadership.
Yeah, listen, as the dad of a graduating senior in high school who just went on all the college tours, trust me, I completely relate to everything you were just talking about. And at times, and you talk to students that are on college campuses these days, and they definitely have different ideas of what college should be, as opposed to what you and I thought about when we were going to college. So it is definitely a different climate. Well, Michelle, I appreciate the time. I know you and your amazing husband Dave have to go do your thing out on the West Coast.
Sonoma. Yeah, we're out in Sonoma, California for the Sonoma Valley Authors Festival, which is very cool. My husband, Dave Barry, he was invited, and I was also invited. We were both invited to present out here. So, but I always, anytime the beast calls, yep. I gotta pipe up. But yeah, I think it's a time of transition, I would say, at the university, from the president's office to the athletic director's office. It's a different time. And, Dan Radakovich was in school when I was there. He's around the same. He's 67. He's a little bit older than me, but not by that much. And it's a different time. It's a different time. So I wish him well. I think he did. He did a good job. I love the fact that the graduation rate is 94% under him. We talk about our academics still important. I mean, especially in this day of NIL transfer portal, and who cares about academics when they're going from school to school to school every year. I am proud to say, as an alum, a 94% graduation rate is really good over the last 4 years. I know they also win awards for community service and stuff like that. He was at the helm during all of this period. And I do think that, Mario Cristobal obviously was a good hire. I think that was right around the time he was getting here. But Jay Lucas was fully his hire, and also the baseball coach. So, he did two good hires. I think both of those programs are in good hands. And those were both his hires.
Michelle,
so he did a lot of good. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Hopefully when you have more time, we'll get you back on. We'll have a little more of an extended conversation. We'll talk some hoops and whatnot, but you and Dave have a great time, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great week. Have a great weekend.
Will do. We'll be back with more right after this on the Real Ones Canes podcast. And we're back here on the Real Ones Canes podcast. It's just the beast. Cam is off on assignment this week. So if you've been watching since the beginning, you heard and watched the interview with Michelle Kaufman from the Miami Herald. And I know what you're saying to yourself. Michelle, she covers hoops. Listen, Michelle is as connected at the highest echelons of insiders, board of trustees, all of that stuff, as anyone. So if there's anyone that understands what is going on at the University of Miami on any given day, Michelle is one of those people. She lives near campus. She's a professor on campus. And again, she knows everybody. So I wanted to get her on to talk about how that story developed with Dan Radakovich. And now I want to dig into the story a bit, because I've also been doing my due diligence and reporting out this story, efforting the story, as they say. So let's start at the top. I was hit in the broadside when the news came down that Dan Radakovich was going to retire. But I shouldn't have been. If you listened or watched last week's show, I told the story and I'll tell it again. At the National Championship Game Media Day at the Miami Beach Convention Center, gaggle of media, hundreds and hundreds of media members. And, I sat there waiting to get, one or two questions into Mario Cristobal at Media Day. And one of the questions I asked him, because, listen, whenever I go to press conferences, whenever I talk to coaches, players, what have you, I try to have a different question than everyone else, right? Like, I don't need to ask Mario about how, at the time, how's your offensive line going to hold up against Indiana's defensive line? Listen, every once in a while I'll get one of those in, but I like to, let me ask something else. So one of the questions, I think I asked Mario two questions. One of the questions I asked him was, talk about the vertical alignment in leadership at the University of Miami, and how you guys kind of all have come together to help this program get back. I said, starting from President Echeverria and Rudy Fernandez and Dan Radakovich, and then down to you, just talk about that vertical alignment of leadership. And Mario went on for a long time about Joe Echeverria, the president, and a long time about Rudy, and he completely skipped Dan Radakovich. And after that question, I walked away because I saw Dan standing off to the side talking to one or two people, and I said, "Oh, well, let me go." I've never had an opportunity to do a one-on-one with Dan or what have you, and so let me, while he's just standing over there, let me see if I can go ask him a couple of questions. But as I'm walking over to him, it just kind of like hit me. I'm like, Mario didn't mention Dan at all, and I'm like, huh, interesting. I just kind of filed it in the back of my mind. And then I talked to Dan and I kind of asked him the same questions and he kind of gave generic answers. And then as I walked to my car that day from the Miami Beach Convention Center, I was just marinating. I was like, I feel like there's something there between Mario and Dan. Not anything bad, not anything, not any kind of kerfuffle stuff. Just like it felt like Mario's basically saying, hey, it's President Echeverria, it's Rudy. Those are the two guys that are making everything go. Dan's here. And the more I talked to people after that, the more people were telling me, yeah, like Dan he's not, I mean, yes, he day to day, he's, making sure, people do their jobs, all that stuff, but he didn't hire Mario. And Michelle talked about him making the hires of Jay Lucas and JD Arteaga. I don't necessarily think that it was definitely 100% him either, considering the whole Columbus connection as we talked about. And did he hire Trisha Cullop? But yeah, I guess. And what else is he involved in? And the answer is basically he was a steady hand when they needed a steady hand after Blake James. He was the right guy at the right time. But as far as looking for growth and really, as Michelle talked about, having to get those big time dollars into the program, maybe he wasn't the guy. And there's a lot facing the University of Miami at this point, and you have to think to yourself, with what's ahead in college athletics, what does the athletic director job look like? What is the job description? And I've actually reached out and talked to a lot of people this week regarding that. I've reached out to people inside the UM community, and I also, listen, through my time of covering the University of Miami for 32 years and being on the sidelines for 10 years, traveling with the team, and just being involved in media and broadcasting, I've met and had the opportunity to befriend a lot of people who are in some pretty big time jobs around the country. And so I reached out and universally was told, listen, yeah, this is the job these days, right? The University of Miami made a partnership deal with Legends Global. And so they've basically outsourced a lot of the revenue stuff and a lot of the sales stuff that used to be, maybe the part of the would have been part of the athletic department before. And as it comes to the NIL, well, you have the Canes connection. So that kind of takes care of that aspect. So what is the major things? Well, it's still making sure you're making relationships with huge businesses. And what is the biggest thing moving forward is realignment and media deals. Those are the two big things: conference realignment and media deals. Because the University of Miami's brand, the brand of the University of Miami, the U logo, is so much bigger than the actual university, right? Those of you that are UM fans or have been on campus or what have you realize at best it's a medium-sized institution. But the brand of the U is much bigger than that. And if you're calling a spade, for years we were always like, well, if it weren't for the football team, there would be no University of Miami. And for a time there was that. But as Michelle talked about with President Echeverria and what he did, Donna Shalala really started this, which is Donna Shalala turned the University of Miami, medical school and medical center into U Health, and was building the medical school and the medical center and all of that stuff downtown, building that on the brand that was the U. And not only did she change the branding, but decided that had to be a huge revenue arm for the University of Miami, and also had a $2 billion capital campaign. So then Julio Frank came in, and he was hired because he's a doctor, and he was supposed to, improve on that, and at best, right? So Joe Echeverria at the time was growing U Health in exponential portions, both in money and research and facilities and buildings, and expanding out here. Like, there's U Health. I live in Broward County. There's U Health facilities up here. Like, I happen to see a specialist at Bascom Palmer, which is the top eye hospital in the world, that is owned by the University of Miami, that's run by the University of Miami. There's a Bascom Palmer. I can go up here, a few minutes away from my house to go see my eye doctor. Whereas before I used to have to drive down all the way to downtown Miami. It's expanding all over the place. U Health. And that's all Joe Echeverria. He's done a great job with that. And lo and behold, that brings most of the money, a ton of money, I don't know what percentage, into the University of Miami. Like, the Coral Gables campus is where the heart of the university is, but the medical school is where the bank is. Like, that's how that kind of goes. So Joe Echeverria becomes the president, and because of his ability to generate revenue, and Michelle talked about it, that's what this is about. It's about money. You need money these days to operate the kind of institution that kids want to be at, researchers want to be at, and patients want to go to. And that's what Joe Echeverria is doing. And again, let's put that back on the athletic department, where it's about generating revenue. And a way that you're going to do that is conference realignment, right? Do you get into the SEC or Big Ten, and you get a much bigger, purse of money that gets dumped in your lap because you're in a better conference than the ACC, although Miami did pretty well this year because they went to the national title game, and because their games were the most watched as related to the ACC on TV. So their share of the dollars was bigger. But, if you want to go take that consistently for years, I'm not sure the ACC is the best place to be for revenue. So conference realignment, and then media rights and media deals. And does Miami have the ability in the new world of college athletics to negotiate some sort of other side media deal with a Netflix, with an Amazon, with an Apple, to somehow get more income than just a conference media deal? And it is those things that are going to be on the docket as a new athletic director takes over. So that's all kind of what I gathered from talking to industry experts for the last week. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is Michael Yormark. Michael Yormark, if you're not familiar, was the president of the Florida Panthers for 10 years, I think 2003 to 2013. And he had nothing to do, he didn't run the hockey side. So them losing for that period of time wasn't good. Wasn't him. But he had to do with the business side. And I dealt with him a little bit, and I dealt with the Panthers a little bit because I worked at WQM at the time. We were the flagship for the Panthers, so we certainly dealt with the Panthers a lot. I worked with people that worked for the Panthers, all this stuff. And Michael Yormark, fast talking, slick sales guy, right? And it was widely known that basically, at the time, the Panthers, it looked like they had a bunch of corporate sponsorships, until you dug into how did they get those corporate sponsorships. Well, they were trading tickets. Like, here, we'll give you a section. I'm being hypothetical. Give you a section if you let us put your logo on our board, on our boards, on our ice. If we make you the official sponsor of one of our clubs, we'll give you a bunch of tickets. You can do with them, because remember, no one was going to the Panthers games, so you might as well give tickets away. And he was basically trading tickets, allegedly, for sponsorship. So it looked like they had a bunch of sponsors, but it wasn't sponsorship dollars that were coming in. He was doing trade. That's how they were getting the sponsors. So from the outside, it would look like, oh wow, this guy generates revenue, but really, it wasn't generating revenue. It was just generating. It made it look good. He kind of put the fraud. He was waxing the car, but on the inside of the car, it was terribly dirty. So that was Michael Yormark with the Panthers. Now he's at Rock Nation and Rock Nation Sports. So that's different than, Jay-Z's label. And what they sound bigger than they really are in the world of, sports agency. So what has he really done to make it so that he should be the next athletic director at the University of Miami? And I will be honest with you. He's pretty universally loathed by most people you talk to that worked for him. I never worked for him, so I can't say that, but I can tell you social media is full of people that have worked for him and don't like him. And I don't think I need that kind of negativity and issue in my athletic department. Part of me wonders whether his name was thrown out there just to gather reaction. Like, how bad is this going to be if we hire him? And I'm wondering if President Echeverria and Rudy and everybody are looking at this and going, maybe. But here's another part of the story. David Epstein, one of the major players at the University of Miami, on the board of trustees, very heavily involved in athletic department decisions. He's a vital component to all things UM. David Epstein was a minority owner of the Panthers when Michael Yormark was running the Panthers. So there's that connection. When I had to go back and, well, how did Michael Yormark get involved with the University of Miami? Well, yes, his daughter does go there. His daughter's a Sunsation. He does go to games, but how does Michael Yormark then think or know Dan Radakovich is going to be pushed out and I want that job? Well, it's certainly one of the ways, possibly, is through board of trustee member David Epstein. That has to be considered. All right. So if it's not Michael Yormark, the other two names that have been floated for the AD job, and again, Miami says they're doing a national search, and maybe they are, and I don't know. I would be really pissed off if they didn't do their due diligence and did a huge national search for this job that's really important. If they just gave it to Michael Yormark and pretended to do a search, I would not be happy. Let's actually do a search. But two other names that have been floated for the athletic director job is Jeff Puritan. Now, Jeff Puritan, I knew him way back. He started out as what we would say is an SID, sports information director. Basically, he handled PR for one of the teams up in Tallahassee. He went to Florida State, I think back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He worked at Florida State in, sports information, sports communications. And then he moved on to be the director of communications for the Orange Bowl committee in the Orange Bowl game. So I knew him through that because back when I was at QAM, we had a sponsorship deal with the Orange Bowl where we had every Thursday we had an Orange Bowl show, and Jeff would help us get on big time coaches and all this stuff. And it was a thing that we did. So he did that. And then he went to Alabama and he started out in just communications at Alabama, but slowly worked his way up to basically being Nick Saban's right-hand man. I don't know what his let me look it up actually. When he finally left Alabama in 2022, he was the executive deputy director of athletics, and he had a bunch of titles at Alabama: associate AD communications, senior associate AD external operations, executive associate AD external operations, deputy director of athletics external operations. But really, he was Nick Saban's right hand man. That's what he was. If you wanted anything from Nick Saban, if you wanted anything done at Alabama, you had to go through Jeff Puritan. That's what he did. He left Alabama and then went to be the vice chancellor for intercollegiate athletics, or the AD, at Arkansas State. And now he's the executive vice president of sports properties at Learfield. Learfield is a third-party company that basically owns college media rights. So they'll come in, they'll buy the rights to, like, they actually did buy the rights to the University of Miami. They'll put it on a radio station like QAM, and then they'll sell the advertising. So this is what happens in today's day and age. No longer, very rarely, is like it used to be, where like QAM would pay University of Miami, such and such amount of money for the rights. QAM would sell the commercials, and that's how they would make the money back. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's companies like Learfield that are buying up rights, and they own, the rights to, like, 50 different college athletic departments, and they'll go sell the advertising, in bulk packages. Like, hey, you want to be on Miami, UCLA, USC, da 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 da. We'll sell you this package, and that's how we'll make our money back. So he works for Learfield now. So he obviously understands the media climate. He obviously understands big time athletics. He worked at Alabama. So yeah, he has a great portfolio. Now, the other guy that is rumored to be up for the position is an old friend. He went to the University of Miami. His name is Jim Frivola. And Jim Frivola went to the University of Miami. He's actually, for those of you that listen to the Le Batard show, you've heard his name come up because for a time, he was, or not for a time, he's one of Dan Le Batard's best friends. He worked at 790 The Ticket at one point in sales. And he has, he's kept up his relationship with Le Batard and all of that stuff. But when he wasn't doing that, he worked for the Marlins. He worked for the Dolphins. He actually came back and worked at his alma mater for a few years as the associate athletic director for external operations. That was marketing and season tickets and donations and corporate sponsorships. And then he ended up going. He went to the Cleveland Browns, but didn't stay there long. Didn't like Cleveland. He was the vice president for global marketing partnerships with the UFC. So that's a huge gig. He then became the chief partnership officer with the Tampa Bay Bucks. So he worked in the NFL. Then he was the chief sales officer for the Vegas Golden Knights. So he worked in the NHL. Then he worked for the Lightning in the same position. And now he's the president of business operations and the co-CEO for AFC Bournemouth, a team in high-level English soccer, and doing a great job with them. He's really turned their marketing and sponsorships into not just a little English regional thing, but a more international, trying to get international businesses to get involved with their club. That's Jim Frivola. But I would say this. Whoever they hire needs to be someone. Listen, big coaching hires, big decisions on that. It's going to be the president, Rudy Fernandez. A lot of the day-to-day stuff and whatever, they have associate director athletics. They have associate athletic directors. They have all that stuff. They have people that can take care of all that stuff. The athletic director for the University of Miami needs to work on, yes, in the city of Miami, in South Florida, why is Bacardi not a sponsor? Why is Royal Caribbean or Carnival not a sponsor? Why is, Burger King not a big sponsor who's headquartered here or was? I think they moved part of their operations to Canada. There's a lot of big businesses that are based in South Florida. Why aren't they big time partners with the University of Miami? That's something that needs to be worked on. Okay, so that's one thing the athletic director has to do, along with Legends Global, which is a third-party operation that they've partnered with to do that. And also they brought back Jesse Marks, who was at the UM for a long time and went to Northwestern and helped them secure the money for their new stadium. He's awesome when it comes to revenue. He's actually the chief revenue officer for UM Athletics. So the new athletic director is going to have to be involved in that. And then it's conference realignment, right? Because that's going to happen. Something's going to happen there. And it's media rights. That's what the new athletic director has to do. No longer is it like, I need to shake hands with Chuck that owns, Bessie's dry cleaner. Like, that doesn't matter anymore. That did matter back when Sam Jankovic and Paul D were athletic directors. That did matter, but not anymore. Now it's find Fortune 500 companies that can invest, fund, get Ryder, get whatever big companies to be partners, negotiate and make sure Miami's on top of whatever's happening with conference realignment, and try to make some other media deal for more income, more revenue. And you know what? If Mario Cristobal is making $80 million, then Mario Cristobal is probably going to have a big say as to who is going to be running the athletic department. Mario does have a relationship with Jeff Puritan, obviously, because Mario was at Alabama for a time when Jeff was at Alabama. I don't know if they're friends. I don't know if Mario likes Jeff, but certainly there's a relationship there. So we'll see what happens. I know this. The University of Miami is in a much better spot now than it was 5-6 years ago. Right? The football team seems to be back and playing consistently well. The basketball team, even with the turnover from Larinaga to Jay Lucas, is in a better spot. Baseball was a bit shy of Omaha last year. Hopefully they get back this year. And, women's basketball, I'm not sure yet on Trisha Cullup and whether, that's continuing the legacy that Katie Meyer had after Fern the Body. So we'll have to see there. But it is in a much better place. And so someone has to take the that is in a much better place and make it exponentially better, bring in all of that revenue, continue to keep your eye on the conference realignment situation and media rights. That's my look at it. So we'll see what happens. We've got a lot to cover over the next few weeks. There's a big recruiting battles that we're watching. We're watching the AD situation. We're watching the baseball team. Hopefully they can continue to win ACC series. We'll keep it right here, and make sure you keep it right here and keep it locked, and we will keep you up to date on your Miami Hurricanes. Hey, if you have not yet, if you made it to the end, please subscribe, please share, please tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your auntie about the Real Ones Canes podcast. Cam will be back next week, and we will see you next time right here on the Real Ones Canes podcast. Peace.